VPT concept interpretation of a post-stroke period's cardiovascular stability through SBP, DBP, HR, PP, MAP, and RPP. Number, Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category, Blood Pressure. Preface. This paper applies my new VPT framework, which stands for viscoplastopology. This concept merges viscoplastic energy modeling with topological geometric modeling. It captures both the internal stress, energy properties of pathophysiology and the geometric evolution of multidimensional biomarkers. By combining these two scientific views, VPT allows me to see cardiovascular stability not as isolated numbers, but as a dynamic system governed by physical, mechanical, geometric, and metabolic behaviors. In this article, I unify 6 cardiovascular biomarkers that I measure daily: SBP, DBP, HR, PP, MAP, and RPP. I reinterpret them together under the VPT concept, to show how my cardiovascular system shifted from instability to stability, especially after my hemorrhagic stroke on June 21, 2025. Introduction. Blood pressure is often treated as two simple numbers, SBP and DBP. Some clinicians also use MAP and PP. However, most doctors do not examine these biomarkers as a combined physical and geometric system. During the past 3+ months, or 102 days, with approximately 16 blood pressure measurements per day and 6 biomarkers per measurement, I have collected almost 10,000 data points during this post-stroke period. My long-term, high-density dataset allows me to view the cardiovascular system as an adaptive structure, similar to a material under changing loads. Using VPT concept, I analyze this system through both viscoplastic energy and topology geometry. When both sides point to the same conclusion, the biological truth becomes clear. My weekly dataset and physiological meaning, rate pressure product, or RPP, is a secondary biomarker that I derived from my BP dataset and used in my research for the first time. RPP is calculated by multiplying SBP by heart rat, i.e., RPP is SBP times HR. RPP indicates how hard the heart is working. A higher RPP reflects higher cardiac workload and oxygen demand, while a lower RPP means the heart is operating efficiently. The normal resting RPP range of 6,000 to 9,000 applies to both younger adults and seniors. However, for seniors over age 70, staying in the lower part of this range, from 6,000 to 9,000, is especially important because it indicates low cardiac workload and stable cardiovascular function. From week 31 to week 46 of 2025, from August 2, 2025 through November 11, 2025, a total of 102 days or 15 weeks, I recorded about 16 BP measurements per day. The weekly data range and averages were: SBP between 109 and 118 mm of mercury, average 114; DBP between 63 and 72 mm of mercury, average 69; MAP around from 82 to 86 mm of mercury, average 84; pulse pressure between 43 and 46 mm of mercury, average 44; HR between 57 and 69 BPM, average 63; RPP between 6,600 and 7,900. Average 7,215. Particularly, my weekly RPP values were: week 31, 6,635; week 32, 7,264; week 33, 7,685; week 34, 7,899; week 35, 6,892; week 36, 7,080; week 37, 7,216; week 38, 7,111; week 39, 7,223; week 40, 7,320; week 41, 7,129; week 42, 7,137; week 43, 7,052; week 44, 7,183; week 45, 7,238; week 46, 7,379. 15 weeks average is 7,215. Healthy. All of these values fall within normal physiological ranges. For a 78-year-old adult, SBP below 120 and DBP around 70 do not indicate hypertension. MAP around 84 is ideal. My heart rate around 60 is ideal. My post-stroke pulse pressure around 45 is excellent for my age, and far better than my pre-stroke value of 51 during the period from January 1, 2025 through June 20, 2025. Most importantly, my RPP values below 8,000. Averaged RPP 7,215, reflect low cardiac workload. Together, these numbers show a cardiovascular system that is stable and well regulated. Viscoplastic interpretation of SBP, DBP, HR, MAP, PP, and RPP. In viscoplastic mechanics, A structure stores energy, releases energy, and eventually enters a stable long-term equilibrium. My cardiovascular signals behave similarly. SBP reflects peak arterial tension. DBP reflects resting arterial tension. MAP reflects average perfusion force delivering oxygen to organs. PP reflects arterial stiffness. HR reflects cyclic loading frequency. RPP reflects the combined mechanical and metabolic workload of the heart. RPP is the missing dimension that unifies pressure and frequency into one number, representing real-time cardiac effort. In this article, I discuss the VPT interpretation conceptually, without presenting any VPT results based on real data analysis. Under VMT logic, SBP represents stress waves, DBP represents resting arterial tension, PP represents stiffness buildup, MAP represents perfusion load, HR represents cyclic fatigue, RPP represents total cardiac workload. In my 15-weekly dataset, none of these indicators are elevated. They behave like a system that has already passed its previous yield transition, and is now resting in a low-energy, plastic equilibrium. In simple English, during the last 15 weeks of my post-stroke period, my blood pressure profile has been stable and acceptable. RPP is the viscoplastic energy signature. RPP reflects myocardial oxygen demand, and is the closest cardiovascular equivalent to a viscoplastic strain energy indicator. Across all 15 weeks, my RPP ranged from 6,600 to 7,900. In viscoplastic terms, this represents low internal energy, low mechanical workload, low metabolic stress, small oscillation amplitude. This confirms that my heart is functioning with minimal internal loading. Topological interpretation of BP and HR. Topology examines shape, size, data connectivity, and structural stability. When I map SBP, DBP, PP, MAP, HR, and RPP into a multidimensional geometric space, I observe no large excursions, no geometric divergence, a tight point cloud, smooth weekly transitions. Years ago, before lifestyle reversal, this system would have formed a wide, unstable manifold. Today, it appears as a compact, contracted cluster, centered around a stable region. This reflects a topological contraction toward low entropy, meaning my cardiovascular system has become more ordered and reliable. This geometric behavior matches the viscoplastic energy reduction, shown by RPP and other biomarkers. Unified VPT view of my cardiac system. From data science and pattern recognition, the VPT concept integrates both perspectives. VMT shows declining stress energy, and TDA shows geometric contraction. When both methods point in the same direction, real biomedical stability is confirmed. My recent blood pressure biomarkers show exactly that. SBP around from 110 to 115, DBP around from 69 to 72, MAP around 84, pulse pressure around from 44 to 45, heart rate around from 60 to 67, RPP around 7,000. This pattern reflects a mature and stable cardiovascular state. Implications for my stroke on June 21, 2025. Based on this evidence, my baseline cardiovascular system is normal and stable. Therefore, the cause of my hemorrhagic stroke cannot be chronic hypertension. If I had chronic hypertension, these biomarkers would not remain so calm and stable. My long-term BP and RPP patterns over 16 years also confirm that I am not a chronic hypertension patient. Instead, my recent stroke was caused by a single acute spike in blood pressure triggered by emotional stress. A sudden SBP rise to 175 mm of mercury on June 21, 2025, ruptured a fragile microvessel near the pons area of my brain even when baseline BP is normal. This acute mechanical surge, not chronic load, explains my stroke event. Incidentally, my stroke occurred near the pons area, which is a very dangerous part of the brain that controls breathing, heartbeat, and swallowing. I feel it was almost a miracle that I survived this event. The pons is part of the brainstem, which controls vital automatic functions such as breathing, heart rate regulation, swallowing, coughing, and basic consciousness. A hemorrhage in or near the pons is one of the most dangerous types of stroke, because even a small bleed can disrupt these life-sustaining functions. Mortality rates for pontine hemorrhage are very high, and survival without major neurological damage is uncommon. Luckily, I not only survived, but I also noticed a clear cognitive uplift. This cognitive uplift is consistent with well-documented post-stroke neuroplasticity phenomena, where certain patients show paradoxical improvements due to neural reorganization. In part of my research reports, I have also shown that my earlier 20 years of uncontrolled diabetes, from 1990 to 2009, contributed about 91% of the viscoplastic energy on my cerebral vessel calcification, which became the root cause of my stroke. In contrast, my recent 16 years of diabetes control through strict lifestyle management contributed only about 9% to my recent stroke event. My long-term damage was the root cause, and the acute 175 mm of mercury blood pressure surge was simply the final trigger. In summary, VPT concept illustrates these facts clearly. Long-term viscoplastic energy is low. Topological geometry is stable. Chronic hypertension is absent. Stroke resulted from an acute hypertension trigger acting on a vessel, weakened by long-term diabetic calcification. Conclusion: by integrating SBP, DBP, HR, MAP, PP, and RPP into one VPT framework, I can now see my cardiovascular system as a unified physical and geometric structure. VMT confirms low internal energy. TDA confirms geometric stability. Combined, they show that my cardiovascular system has entered a low stress, low entropy, highly stable state. VPT concept and framework helped me decode chronic disease. Through the combination of physics, engineering, mathematics, geometry, biology, pathology, and physiology, it confirms that my stroke was caused by a rapid, emotional surge, not chronic hypertension. It also shows that my long-term lifestyle management to control my diabetes' conditions has successfully transformed my cardiovascular system into a low-energy, stable equilibrium, even though it took me 26 years to achieve. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is for educational reference only, and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights belong to the author, Gerald C.